I was dating his brother when I first felt it. It was Thanksgiving of all days. The house smelled like cinnamon and baked ham, and laughter echoed off the walls. I was perched between his mother and my boyfriend, trying to smile to seem natural. But across the long wooden table he sat, sleeves rolled to his elbows, eyes darker than they should have been, fixed on his plate like it was the only thing holding him together. I told myself I was imagining it. Until I looked up and caught him watching me. Not casually, not like a brother-in-law should. No, it was the kind of look that leaves your skin flushed before it even reaches your thoughts. The kind that makes you shift in your seat and hope no one notices the way your breath just caught in your throat. He looked away quickly. But I didn't. That night, I kept replaying it in my head. That single glance. The flicker of something that should never have been there. I didn't know what to call it. Guilt, maybe? Or worse, what? I thought that would be the end of it. A strange moment. A slip. But then came the next family dinner. And the next glance. And then the way his hand lingered a second too long when he passed me the wine. The brush of fingers that didn't need to happen but did. Until finally, one night, I turned a corner in their house and ran straight into him. His hand shot out instinctively to catch me. My body pressed into his, breath stuttering between us. And when I looked up, there was no pretending anymore. His brother was upstairs. His parents were in the kitchen. But in that hallway, under dim lighting and silence sharp enough to slice through air, we both stood perfectly still. And something between us started to burn. I met Daniel first, the brother I was supposed to love. He was charming in the safe way. Always on time, always saying the right things. We met at a friend's wedding, danced to an old Marvin Gaye song, and started dating a week later. Everything about us looked good from the outside. His parents adored me. We fit well in photos. But there was always something missing. A space between our conversations that never quite filled in. Then I met Noah. Daniel had talked about him before, the artsy one, the quiet twin. Except he wasn't quiet when I met him. He was precise. Every word felt chosen, every silence more eloquent than the last. And he didn't look at me like I was something to show off. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he'd already started solving. It was subtle at first. A glance that lasted a second too long. A joke whispered low enough that it made my skin react before I even smiled. But I kept telling myself, it's just in your head. It's just attention and you're starving for it. Until one night, Daniel had to work late, and I ended up helping his mom set the table for a family dinner. Noah came home early. His shirt clung to his chest from the rain outside, and his eyes flicked over me like he'd already imagined this scene before. And when he walked past me, just brushed past, barely touching, I felt it in my spine. The worst part? I didn't move away. I stood there like I was waiting. Like I wanted more. And that terrified me. Because in a house filled with expectations, photos, polite wine pours, and Sunday traditions, I had just started craving something wild, something dangerous. Something I could never ever admit. Especially not to the man I was supposed to be in love with. After that night, everything shifted. Noah and I became careful in the kind of way that makes things even worse. We avoided being alone, which only made the silence between us scream louder. Every room he entered felt charged. Every time I felt his presence behind me, my body tensed before I even saw him. It was like my skin recognized him before my mind could stop it. At dinner, I'd feel his gaze before I looked up. I'd hear the weight of his breath when I passed behind his chair. And once, when we reached for the same dish and our fingers touched, I swear, I felt my pulse echo in my ears. It wasn't even about touch anymore. It was the absence of it. The almosts. The way my breath caught when I heard his voice behind me. The ache in my chest when I caught a glimpse of his bare forearms as he dried dishes. The way I became painfully aware of my own body around him, my shoulders, my mouth, my legs crossed under the table too tightly. And then came the night of Daniel's birthday. Everyone was gathered in the backyard, lights strung across the fence, soft music floating over half-empty glasses of wine. I needed a moment to breathe, just a second to be alone, so I slipped inside to the upstairs bathroom. I wasn't expecting anyone to be there. But when I pushed the door open, there he was leaning against the counter, shirt unbuttoned just enough to make me forget how to speak. Neither of us moved. My hands stayed frozen on the door. His eyes found mine in the mirror. And in that one breath, everything fell away, the rules, the names, the expectations. It was just him. Just me. And this pull that had been growing for weeks, now pulsing between us like a heartbeat we both tried to ignore. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Because I closed the door behind me. And I didn't lock it. But I wanted to that I didn't even know I'd taken a step toward him until I felt the warmth between us. He didn't move. Not right away. He just looked at me, the kind of look that doesn't ask for permission because it already knows the answer. And yet he still waited. Like he needed me to cross the line on my own. And I did. My fingers brushed his wrist, light, trembling, almost unsure. But the way his breath hitched, that told me everything. His skin was warm, like it had been waiting for my touch. When his hand finally reached for me, it wasn't rushed. It was reverent. Like every inch he covered between us mattered more than the destination. Like he was memorizing a moment we'd both tried so hard to avoid. He stepped closer. I leaned back against the counter, the cool edge pressing into my spine, grounding me. But his hands did the opposite. They set me adrift. One on my waist, firm but not demanding. The other hovered at my jaw, barely touching, as if afraid I'd disappear if he got too close. And then, his forehead against mine. That quiet kind of closeness. The kind that says, I know this is wrong, but I can't walk away. My hand slid up his arms, fingers curling into fabric, unsure whether I wanted to hold on or pull him closer. Every breath felt stolen. Every second a crime. His mouth didn't find mine right away. No, it found my cheek. My temple. The space just below my ear that made me tremble against him. Gentle, almost hesitant. But it lit something inside me I didn't know how to hide anymore. I exhaled his name. Not as a question, not even as a whisper. Just a release. And when our lips finally met, it was like falling. Slow. Deep. Inevitable. And nothing in me wanted to stop. He kissed me like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. There was nothing rushed. No hunger that demanded. Just heat. Spreading slowly like fire catching silk. His mouth moved with purpose, learning me, not taking me. And every place his lips touched felt newly awakened. My hands moved on instinct, sliding up beneath the hem of his shirt. His skin was warm, alive beneath my fingers, and when he pulled in a shaky breath, I felt it everywhere, like his body was speaking in a language only mine could understand. I arched into him, not out of need but because it felt inevitable, like gravity had finally done its job. The mirror behind him fogged with our breath. His hands roamed my back like he was searching for something soft to hold onto in a world that suddenly felt far too sharp. And when he buried his face in the crook of my neck, I felt his lips part, not in words but in surrender. My heartbeat wasn't in my chest anymore. It had moved. To the space where our bodies met. To the tips of my fingers, the curve of my spine, the ache blooming low and slow. It wasn't about lust. Not really. It was about need. The kind you don't talk about. The kind that builds in glances and silence and late-night thoughts you pretend not to have. And in that tiny bathroom we stopped pretending. There were no names. No titles. No consequences. Just hands finding skin, breath catching in throats, and two people finally giving in. And for the first time in weeks I felt quiet inside. No guilt. No fear. Just the weight of his body pressing into mine. And the sound of his heart racing right in time with mine. After we didn't speak. We just stayed there. Tangled in the thick humming silence, hearts pounding, chests rising and falling in some unspoken rhythm neither of us could break. His forehead rested against mine. Eyes closed. Like if he opened them, reality would crash back in too fast. I didn't want to move. Not because I was afraid of getting caught, but because I knew the second I let go, it would all feel like a dream. A beautiful, impossible one. He brushed a thumb down my cheek. Soft. Hesitant. Reverent. I wanted to say something, anything. But words felt too small for what had just passed between us. For the weeks of restraint, the months of pretending, the sudden, unstoppable flood of this. Eventually I straightened, smoothing my hair, my breath still uneven. He stepped back too, and for a moment we just stared at each other in the mirror. No accusations. No regret. Just two people quietly wrecked by something they couldn't undo. I'm sorry, he finally whispered. But it wasn't shame in his voice. It was longing. I opened the door, stepping back into the hallway where the world waited. Soft laughter drifting from downstairs, the sound of a birthday song beginning. And just before I walked away I turned back. He hadn't moved. His hand gripped the edge of the sink like it was the only thing keeping him upright. And in that moment I realized something. What we did didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a beginning we weren't brave enough to follow.